Throughout time, marches have taken place in the United States. The racist treatment of minorities in this country, the systemic discrimination, Jim Crow laws, redlining, segregation, segregated water fountains for different school children, segregated seating in theaters, segregated waiting rooms, segregated schools, segregated restaurants, the marches for civil rights, for voting rights, for human rights, the marches that took place for Black lives simply, at the very, very least, mattering. Marches and large volumes of protest is an act from society that states we are not satisfied with where we are and or fear the direction we are going. Protest is the power of the people. Throughout time, the mass gatherings of those who believe they have not been heard, who have been put down, spit on, glossed over, removed, oppressed, demonized, and taken advantage of to remain the lesser. These forms of good trouble have brought us forward without surrendering, relenting, abstaining, or conceding the power of the people and the power the people have in this country. Many athletes spoke up and spoke out to effect change, holding a mirror up to American citizens, even when it was not a popular stance to take. They were, over time, loved and deemed heroes. Yet one ex-athlete did not, as Howard Bryant titled in his well-known book, Enter the Heritage.
Do you support any new gun laws in the wake of this Texas shooting? Do you support new gun laws in the wake of this Texas shooting?
What I like to do is see it and everything and stuff. I like to see it being everything.
For Herschel Walker, this is something that is unrelatable.
What do you think about, and do you approve of athletes now in the free market being able to use their name, image, and likeness?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm not for it.
Shocker, right? Aside from this and his stumping at every turn for insurrectionist ex-President Donald Trump, Walker's high school days provided an opportunity to take the right stance. He failed in doing so. At the time, the sheriff in Johnson County was Roland Attaway, a racist who loved dehumanizing black citizens. During the 60s, Attaway was the constant target of civil rights complaints, and in one publicized incident, he roughed up a black teen who had been drinking at a water fountain that had once been for whites only. He has been known to come knocking on a citizen's door for the mere collection of a debt some merchant had complained of. Book Patrol notes, on a May night, shots rang out in the black part of town. A young black girl was wounded and a white policeman was grazed. After the shots were fired, Attaway and his cronies moved in and arrested upward of 40 people of color, many of whom were held for days without being charged and were unable to speak to an attorney. In the middle of the night, Attaway would violate the rights of the town's black residents, visiting their homes with guns out, loaded and pointed, ordering them out of their place of residence, no matter the age. He would haul away parents, teenagers, churchgoers, and reverends, including a well-known reverend and John Martin, local president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, who had already been arrested that evening. Attaway had no clue what to charge these people with. He strategized, fending off questions from reporters and lawyers alike as to just how many had been arrested. The court ranged from 25 to 44 before Attaway settled briefly on 38, and just what exactly they were being charged with. Attaway changed the charges too. Reverend E.J. Wilson was one of the last behind bars because Attaway had a bone to pick with him. The sheriff did not appreciate Wilson's activism, his picketing, his demand for a fairer shake in the community, including more jobs at a local supermarket. As the protests grew, so did the tension. When these marches were led by Wilson and Martin, white mobs would shout jeers and taunts reminiscent of the ugly days of Selma and Birmingham. Several black people were beaten, and reporters on the scene say deputies and policemen were eager participants. His bigotry led to marches in Walker's hometown. Black people clamored for equality, and white people beat them with fists and sticks and chains. Bigots called black protesters soulless animals and cannibals, brandished Confederate battle flags, and sent shotgun blasts into black families' homes. Pastors and activists registered voters and sued the sheriff and other local lawmen, and they marched. Fired up, hundreds chanted, walking four abreast from a black church to the courthouse in the central square. Can't take no more. Herschel Walker notwithstanding, Wilson would say, "This is one of the most racist places in Georgia." During this time, Walker was the most notable figure in the town, and his celebrity was ever growing. So what stance did he take? He took the stance of remaining silent. In a county of not quite 8,000 that was approaching 40% black but had no black elected officials and no black sheriff's deputies but one black superstar, he was asked at the very outset of his life as such a public figure by black leaders, classmates, and peers, by Jesse Jackson, by the widow of Martin Luther King Jr. to say something, to do something, to join them. As the days went on, black leaders sang hymns. The Triple K met them with racial epithets and force. The racist rhetoric flowed throughout the white mobs, approaching their black neighbors with sheer violence. Throughout these tense, terrifying weeks and months, according to subsequent reporting in national newspapers and magazines, black schoolmates, demonstrators, organizers, and more leaned on Walker, demanded he joined, said the New York Times, pleaded, as the Atlanta Constitution put it. Coretta King and Jesse Jackson were calling Herschel, Gary Smith wrote in the fall of '81 in Inside Sports, trying to get him to take a stand. 9 of Walker's track teammates quit the team as part of the protest. The black activists implored Walker to join them, but he demurred, in part dissuaded by his track coach. "I told him, Herschel, we have practice at 3 o'clock, Tom Jordan says. "You got to be here. You can't be leading marches." Herschel Walker's decision came as a surprise to the black citizens of Wrightsville and sheer joy to the white people. He did not participate in any of the protests. He also despises commenting about it. This shrug of shoulders, don't get involved approach came as a comfort to many in the white community who lauded his choice. Why can't they all be like Herschel Walker? That's what some white people here said about black people here, Prue wrote. "We followed him. We looked up to him," Buck Evinger, a white football teammate, told the biographer. The fact that he stayed neutral helped the situation a lot. Not to his black peers, it didn't.
People want to ask me all the time why I'm running. I'm sick and tired. I'm sick and tired of them wanting to teach CTR in school.
Many critics pointed to how this explains Herschel Walker by turning his back on some for the acceptance of others. This is a person who has run away from issues of race and has not dealt with them, says Kevin Harris, former executive director of the Congressional Black Caucus. If you are Herschel Walker and don't understand how the racists are using you to give cover to their racism, then you are not qualified to serve in the U.S. Senate at this time. Politico adds he was, in other words, a black athlete white fans cheered and liked. In that era, more O.J. Simpson, say, than Muhammad Ali, while Walker kept close track of Ali. Wrightsville mentors said in 1981 he was impressed by O.J. Simpson's stature and class. Sports sociologist Harry Edwards would say Walker has positioned himself into being a useful fool for those who don't have the best interests of black people or this democracy at heart. Edwards also spoke with Politico. As long as he restricted himself to activities and comments about what was happening on the football field, he was okay. They were demonstrating against racial injustice in his hometown, and he couldn't come out and make a statement about it because he was eminently concerned about being above reproach as far as his credentials relative to being the right kind of blank. Maybe what speaks volumes, the most volumes, is this quote Roland Attaway gave of Herschel Walker. "Herschel," said Attaway, "did not get involved in that trouble. He's a fine young man, and he's welcome here anytime."